bring in the aforementioned Michael Kay. Is that the first time you've heard the call since you made the call, Michael?
No, I'd heard it last night because we played it a couple of times coming back from break in the later innings.
When you know that there's history that can be made, how do you treat each at bat as the announcer every time Judge comes to the plate?
You know, it became a little trying for everybody, and I'm sure for the viewers as well, Dan, because, you know, you're doing television and you know that this is going to be a standalone at bat if he hits the home run. So you've got to like layer all the important parts of what's coming up. And, you know, we were also welcoming in a national audience that was joining us on ESPN and on MLB Network. So there was a lot of that bookkeeping to do. So after a while, it got really, really old.
What kind of criticism was attached to this home run chase?
In terms of my calls or the home run chase?
I think everything that's involved in it. I think there are people that probably wanted to free their conscience that, hey, I fell in love with Bonds and McGwire and Sosa, and now I can move that to the side, and we got a clean home run champ. Or, you know, you're breaking into programming. Nobody cares about Aaron Judge or the Yankees. So, not that you can control any of that.
Well, it's interesting, Dan. We live in a world, I think, where negativity really has a louder megaphone than anything positive. So, you know, a lot of people were saying, and it was spurred on by Roger Maris Jr., who is a real gentleman, that this is the real record. It's not the real record. Even Aaron Judge says it's not the real record. The real record is Barry Bonds. But the beauty of sports and the beauty of those numbers is that you can actually make the decision for yourself. If you think that it's Judge's 62 that reigns supreme, then that's what you should believe. But to say that it is the official record, I mean, there's a record book that has Barry Bonds at the top of it. So that was certainly something that we heard a lot of. And then, you know, especially during the Saturday broadcast, Dan, when we kept breaking in college football, Sean McDonough, a friend of mine, made a snarky comment as well. One time we cut into NFL Live in the first game yesterday, and they cut in for Kyle Higashioka's at bat. So, you know, I guess everybody that wanted to see it was probably watching Yes or the MLB Network, and those that didn't want to see it didn't want to see it, so they didn't want to be bothered with it.
How big a record is this, though?
I think it's a big record because it's the American League record, so you don't have to like fudge it and, you know, say the clean record or since they've been testing or anything like that. You know, the number 61 almost has a romantic feel to it in sports, not just in baseball. A movie by Billy Crystal, 61, and that number has stood the test of time. So when you break that number after 61 years, I think it does mean something. I really do.
Does Roger Maris go away now?
You know what? It's funny. I asked a couple of people that. Does that diminish what he did? I don't think so, because it was so dramatic when he did it, and it was a chase between he and Mickey Mantle, so it captured the imagination of New York and certainly the country as well, and they were beating Babe Ruth's record, and that's probably one of the all-time great names in all sports. So I don't think he goes away, but I do think it takes a little bit of the shine away from the fact that, you know, he was the American League home run leader, and those that believe that the guys in the National League did it with PEDs or whatever, they could always go back to Maris. Well, now you can't go back to Maris. You really have to go back to Judge. So I think it takes away a little bit.
And listening to your call, now this wasn't a no-doubter with Judge. And you let it breathe a little bit because you don't want to have warning track power, and you've made this call that you think it's going to be this majestic, this is 62, this is the home run. So what was the strategy there? As that ball's in the air, it almost felt like you took a breath and waited to actually see what was going to happen.
Well, I'm glad that I was on TV and not doing the game on radio like John, because when you say deep to left, you can take a pause and let the picture tell the story. And then once I saw that it was gone, then I said soaring into history. But yeah, that was not the home run that you really wanted on that call, because, you know, if it was like what Giancarlo Stanton hit the other day, 457 feet, I mean, you could serve a meal on that and still make the call. But this one was a little tricky, and I'm just glad I didn't stumble on it. But I did give it time to breathe because you want to make sure that it's gone.
Well, remember when McGwire broke the record? It was a bullet.
Yes.
It was just a bullet. You couldn't even get, you know, it's high. It might be. It could. No, it was like, it's gone. It's over. Then what do you do?
And that, you know what, Dan, that was almost like the 61st in Toronto. That was kind of a bullet too. And sometimes that's good because you can't get into all of these, grandiose nonsense that you think that people want to hear. It's just boom, it's a home run call. But this was like a little bit between 60 and 61, somewhere in the middle of those two calls.
He's Michael Kay, the Yankees play-by-play announcer for Yes Network. What impact will this season have on Aaron Judge's future as a Yankee?
Well, I know it's going to have an impact on his checkbook for sure. So he turned down $213 million, and I would assume, Dan, that he probably made himself over $100 million more. So that's significant. Now, how does that impact signing with the Yankees? I'd say he's still the odds-on favorite to go back to the Yankees, but I think it opens up a lot of other bidders. I mean, the San Francisco Giants, from what I've heard, would really make a run at him, and that's his hometown team. You have to wonder, would Steve Cohen and the New York Mets be interested? When the Yankees were in Boston, I heard whispers that, the Red Sox are getting nervous that their fans think that they're trying to become a small market team after trading Mookie Betts. Maybe they would make a run as well, kind of the reverse curse of the Bambino. But I think there will be bidders out there, and he's played it so beautifully, Dan, and close to the best. So I don't know if he's going to take a little less to stay with the Yankees. But I will tell you this: if it gets silly, everybody has said, well, the Yankees have to sign him no matter what. Well, that's not how the Yankees do business. It's not a no matter what situation. If it gets to be a line that's crossed that they go, well, we don't want to give him 11 years, they'll walk away. And I think that if they undercut him, he'll walk away. So I think it's going to be a very fascinating conversation between the two sides come November.
What would his legacy be if he left the Yankees after this season?
I hear that on the radio show so much. It's like callers call in, and it's almost like they're afraid to fall in love. It's like a summer romance where Olivia Newton-John's going to go back to Europe, and then you're stuck in Greaseville. So it might have been a great summer, but do you really appreciate it as much unless you stay with that person forever? I think fans are torn. They really are. I think it would still be a magnificent season. But if he doesn't come back as a Yankee, I think in Yankee lore, it will probably be tamped down just a bit because fans will think he's no longer one of us.
I always wonder, and we've seen players who don't fit into New York. Their personality doesn't fit. Judge, I don't know him, but he seems to be, pretty even keel about most. He showed frustration throwing his helmet the other night, which I was surprised at. But for the most part, he seems to have a temperament that can deal with all of this. How important has that been for this season and really the maturation process of him?
Well, I think if you went to a laboratory and created the perfect player for New York, it would probably be Aaron Judge. He says the right things. He deals with the media very, very well. He works from the Derek Jeter playbook where he's not going to give you all that much, but he's going to give you enough time that you feel that you just got enough to do your job. Doesn't treat people poorly. I've never seen that. And one thing that I've noticed about him, Dan, he's so unbelievable with children. And he's unbelievable with children even when there are not cameras around. I took my 7-year-old son to spring training this year, and he got a chance to meet him. And, he gets down. He literally gets down on the level of the child and is looking in their eyes and talks to them and really asks them questions. And a lot of athletes don't have that. And if they do, it's eyewash. But this guy really seems like he cares about kids and the impact that he has on children. So he's been amazing. He really has been amazing. And the fact that he didn't flinch at all, Dan, when he turned down $213 million, a lot of guys would have put a lot of pressure on themselves, betting on themselves. You've heard that phrase so much now. Well, he bet on himself, and he won big. And that there's something to be said for that when you do it in New York. Remember, the first 13 games of the year, Dan, he had 1 home run. So everybody's going, oh, it's affecting him. Well, it didn't affect him. The only time I ever saw him be affected by pressure this year, Dan, was what you just mentioned. First game of the doubleheader yesterday when he slammed his helmet into the bat rack. I've never seen that from him in 6 years. I think it was starting to get to him because it was an individual achievement, and he's a total team guy.
Who do you expect to play in the World Series?
I think it's going to come down to the Yankees and the Astros in the American League. Can the Yankees solve the Astros? I don't know. The Yankees have a really tough road ahead of them, Dan, because they don't have a closer. I mean, they're going to have to do, closer by committee. That's really hard to do. over the month of October. I think, how do you bet against the Dodgers? So right now I'd say the Dodgers and the Astros, but if the Yankees somehow figure out the bullpen aspect of it, I could see the Yankees knocking off the Astros.
Is the hatred for the Astros over?
Not in New York.
And probably not in L.A. either.
Not in L.A., not in New York. But I think around the country, probably wanes just a little bit. But in New York, I mean, they'll just break into the Altuve chants. And, it's like Red Sox fans or even anybody in Boston during a Bruins game, the Yankee chant comes up. So I don't think Yankee fans will ever forget that.
I'll leave you with this. I'll give you the future of Aaron Judge or the future of Shohei Ohtani.
Ohtani's younger. So I'd probably take the future of Ohtani because he's younger. And he's making $30 million off arbitration. And you know how I love money, Dan. So I think that Judge will get about $40 million a year. And I think Ohtani, when he becomes a free agent after next season, will probably command $50 million a year.
Oh, my God. How would George Steinbrenner deal with today if he came back and you say, George, that guy's going to cost you $50 million a year?
I think he had a way of adapting, Dan. I think he would have found a way for sure. And I think the team would be completely different. Hal, I think, has done a great job running this team, but he's a very business-like guy, and that's the way he runs the team. But if George is running the team right now, I'm sure that Bryce Harper would be on the team and Manny Machado would be on the team. All the big, shiny items on the shelf, George probably would have got to come to the Yankees.
How close was Seinfeld to capturing Steinbrenner?
Probably not that close. He was not goofy like that. He was impetuous, but he wasn't goofy. The Larry David voice and everything kind of caught the timbre of the voice, but he wasn't running around screaming for calzones or anything like that. So I don't think they totally got him, but in a comedic sense, they certainly, I've been told that in comedy, you just kind of expand to make it funny. So they kind of expanded off the germination of a character, but that wasn't George. There wasn't that much goofiness.
Michael, great to talk to you again, and great job with the call, and good luck in the postseason.
Thank you so much, Dan.
That's Michael Kay, Yankees play-by-play voice for Yes Network.